All right, Chris.
Oof, break it down.
This is
it down.
I'm probably going to be listening more than talking.
Okay.
But I do think that this is very interesting. Just from all accounts, people overreacting, people underreacting, people not thinking it's anything, me thinking it's something but not knowing what it is, and so I'm excited to hear you talk about it.
So, over the weekend, let me back up a little bit. You might remember a couple of weeks ago, we had talked about how there were some comments from the CEO of Microsoft and just some things, and then starting to get some rumblings that, hey, maybe Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves might be getting brought over to PlayStation 5 and or possibly Nintendo, if not both of them, one of them, or something like that. And and then based on all these kind of comments and these histories of comments from various executives and the CEO, and then even some backtracking from Phil, and then other ambiguous statements that Phil has made, it's like, I don't know, this seems like this might actually be a thing. Then we got some data mined stuff showing that there are Hi-Fi Rush t-shirts that are platform specific for both Nintendo and for Sony, as well as Xbox. So it's like, okay, well,
Hi-Fi Rush would be so good on the Nintendo Switch.
It seems like this one, if nothing else, is for sure like a done deal. Like, this is going to happen. Yeah. Which, again, there's some precedence there, because like Ori and the Blind Forest has been on Nintendo Switch. We've had Cuphead that's been across both. That for a while was a not a first party game, but was an exclusive game, at least there for a while. So it's not like super crazy, but it's just seeming like this is going to be a thing. Then over the weekend, we started getting word that, oh man, it's looking like Starfield. Yeah, Starfield's gonna be sent over to PlayStation. They're gonna launch this game on PlayStation. Then we get word that, that's
crazy.
That
one's crazy.
Yeah,
like, even though at first, right before the Bethesda thing, we thought Starfield would be cross-platform, but then the Bethesda thing happens and that kind of gets pulled.
Yeah, they made a big to do. In fact,
very just Microsoft.
Yeah, and they even said specifically, they're like, and it's exclusive. Like when they were presenting it, they're like, blah, 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 and it's exclusive.
It's exclusive,
right? So
yeah,
they made a big to do about it.
And it sounds like
more so.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Chris, when you say we got word that Starfield, how did we get the word?
So there's several different sites, some that you've heard of before. So one of them that actually I had not heard of before was like called Xbox Era, but they're Xbox Xbox specific content that does news stories and things. You had stuff from Tom Warren, which is of The Verge. You had Jez Corden, who is on Windows Central. So some that are journalists, some that are like more like enthusiast websites, but have had a history of having sources that have leaked some stuff in the past. So to be completely honest or fair about
just getting it
this
right.
is all just rumor mill, unnamed sources, because they don't have they want to be anonymous because they don't really have the ability to talk about this publicly. All that's the kind of information that we're getting.
Okay.
Then we start to hear from these same kind of sources, if you will, so rumors essentially, that the new Indiana Jones game is also going to be coming to PlayStation. Now, we don't know timelines, we don't know any of this stuff. But the fact that all this just like ramped to a fever pitch over the weekend, come Monday, the internet was lost its mind. And it was so like, as someone who is like followed gaming news for a really long time, like from the early PS3 and 360 days all the way through, like it reminded me so much of the old school days when you would hear a thing and like the internet would just go bananas on it. And it was from an outside, like looking in perspective, it was a huge train wreck, and I had a ton of fun reading and watching it all. I had so much fun.
Wreck. Like it was so much a train wreck that you thought that somebody from Xbox would at least just get on and clear something up. It's just something. Clear up something.
So,
but no,
you might wonder, as it pertains to that in particular, it's like, okay, so then did anybody say anything? The only thing that we got was a post from Phil Spencer, and he said this: "We're listening and we hear you. We've been planning a business update event for next week where we will look forward to sharing our details with you about our vision for the future of Xbox. Stay tuned." And supposedly that meeting was planned for later in the month, and it got brought up. So that is them rushing it forward rather than hitting something this week. Because all this happens in terms of the internet freaking out and hitting a fever pitch on Monday. So it's like the fact that they're even waiting a week seems a little bit crazy. At least not like putting out some kind of statement, a little bit more than just this message. Granted, this is something for sure.
Yeah.
Even that seems a bit crazy because the internet's just constantly stewing this whole week. They're just continuing to stew on this stuff.
Why do you think
stuff keeps happening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Ed.
Why was Indiana Jones like the tipping point? Because to me, I don't think I ever thought of it as a forever exclusive. I think I kind of thought of it as like a death loop where it'll probably eventually go everywhere else.
Because it's Todd Howard and these
Death
guys
Loop Deathloop was set in motion and deals signed before they even owned Bethesda. Yeah. So that was a little bit of a different situation. It was more about, and to Phil's credit, he made this point after they had purchased and the deal went through Bethesda. They're like, hey, look, there are existing contracts that are in place and we're going to honor all those agreements kind of thing. So Deathloop was a little bit of a different situation.
Yeah.
And Ed, I think too, it feels like if you're a Xbox guy, you've ridden this wave of be patient with us. It's coming. We're doing it. It's coming. We're doing it.
Thing.
We're buying up. We're buying up all these things, and it's just gonna be for y'all. A bunch of stuff is gonna be just for y'all. And it seems like outside of Starfield, like it feels like they haven't done it yet. And then as Starfield's still newish, rumors are happening that it's not gonna be that. And so it's like it's just they're like, well, what about us? What about us? We've lost the console war. We lost it last gen. We're losing it this gen, and now we like what is going on? I think it's just like a lot of angst to want to choose sides and be on a side and be like, I'm an Xbox guy. And look, Todd Howard, they about to take us to the promised land, and I just think that they just have not quite delivered on the. I don't know.
Yeah,
it just feels like Sony's doing it. And then slowly giving things to PC. But like, we're not talking about like Sony stuff coming to Xbox. Like that's like a next level thing.
Yeah.
When Xbox, so if Xbox has stuff come out on PC, that's not really a problem. But when you have it start coming out on PlayStation, it feels like they're talking about Gears of War coming to PlayStation. And you're like, what? Like Gears of War? Like what in the world? Anyway.
I mean, it's so the term
and Halo.
Yeah. The term fanboy gets a huge bad rap, and it's well-deserved to have a bad rap because there's tons of people out there who are tribal about their thing.
Right.
And like give the death threats and do all the and harass, voiceover actors and all this dumb stuff that's like absolutely a push too far kind of thing and having huge big fights on the internet. I don't have any problem with someone falling in love with a brand, whatever it is, whether it's in gaming, in anything, in sports, and a team,
J.J. Abrams,
whatever it is. Yeah, you're a huge fan of Star Trek, and that's the J.J. Abrams. He's going to bring us back. We're going to be a thing. Whatever. I have no problem with people getting passionate about a thing, and I think that in that sense, a lot of people are like, it's just a plastic box to play games. Like, yeah, but like these people have invested. They've spent their time. They spent thousands of dollars if you look out over the entire generation. And as it pertains to gaming right now, if Xbox were to go away, which so the ceiling of the rumor mill was that Xbox going straight out flat third party and they're just going to let Xbox die and it's going to go away. That's been refuted by plans possibly leaking about what their next Xbox is actually going to be. So it's like it's all over the place and we don't know anything for sure until whatever this business meeting is next week that they're going to do, which is a weird way to phrase what it is. And even then, I bet it's going to be the most minor versions of it. We're still not going to get like the full picture because there's been other articles coming out from people saying, and including Tom Warren was one of the ones who spoke into this, saying like, look, there's people at Microsoft on the Xbox side who have been fighting against these plans. There's people on the Microsoft side. They're like looking at the dollars and cents and saying like, look, guys, we've gave this a good go. Let's start making some return on our investment by opening up the floodgates. And then like, there's a lot of people that don't really even know what all's going on. They're like, so until we get anything for legitimate, it's like, you just need to cool your jets a little bit. It's fun to, and I think that it's okay for Xbox community to get out there and like beat the drums at the rumors because that's the only real way that the the suits and ties behind making the decisions can see like what it's almost like testing the waters of what the reaction actually will be when you still have time to possibly rein it in if you wanted to. But it's just like, we don't know exactly what's going to happen until next week.
Right.
And they probably won't even know for sure then exactly all of it. We'll just have like a taste of what it is.
Yeah.
But it is crazy because
Can you talk about the leaked image that came off of, what was it, Best Buy or?
Yeah. So and this is crazy too, because the same phrase that I'm about to say actually came out from EA like
years
early
ago.
last year or the year before that or something like that. But EA had done this, and then recently it was Best Buy, I think it is, put out an image where you can go to a store and you can demo like the Series X and the Series S, and you can see what it's like to have Microsoft Game Pass. That's what they called it in this little image. So everybody's then losing their mind, like, oh, they're going to rebrand, and that's part of all the downfall and all this stuff. And then you have several people coming out, similar journalists and whatnot, saying like, no, this isn't right. This isn't right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's crazy times. It's crazy times.
So funny when that image came out.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way right now that image just came out.
Right.
And people are like, it's a typo. I'm like, it's a big typo.
You can't typo Microsoft from Xbox.
But you know what though? Like if you were to come up and say to me in conversation, Microsoft Game Pass, I would not, because I just think of it as Game Pass. So it wouldn't even raise a thing of it's wrong. Yeah. So I can totally see.
Yeah, because we do have PC Game Pass. We have Game Pass Ultimate. We've got Xbox Game Pass. But it's just like in the midst of people talking about Xbox dying, it's like, what a time to have done that.
Yeah. If I was proofreading that, I would have let it slip through. That would not.
Oh, me too. Absolutely.
It's so funny.
So with all this happening, my mind goes back several years ago to a show where we were talking about like when the Xbox One was just not gaining any traction towards the tail end, getting close to the end of that generation. I was just like, guys, what if Microsoft just went just to be a publisher? They just get out of the hardware game and they're just a publisher. Maybe they get Game Pass and they work out some deal to get Game Pass on PlayStation, Game Pass on I guess it wouldn't be on Steam, but competitor with Steam. And then you get Game Pass on Nintendo. And that's an option. Like, I don't know if those platforms would allow that, but if nothing else, you at least put the games out there. Of course, that was way before we ever knew about Activision Blizzard possibly being bought and any of those kinds of things. And now that some time has gone by and everything that's happened has happened in terms of them buying Activision Blizzard King and that finally going through, I really thought like, no, I would have thought that this option of them possibly going as a third party publisher was like out the door. Like they've made all these gigantic purchases. They're just going to ride this horse into the sunset and see where it takes them. And if it's starting to work, they'll gobble up more, whatever they can get, kind of thing. And now that it's, we don't know, but now that it's seeming like maybe the door is opening to the third party thing again, it's like, I kind of like the idea personally. I mean, now granted, I don't like the idea of Sony not having a competitor, but I really feel like if Xbox did just go away as a hardware and they just became a publisher and made all their games and sold them wherever people would buy them, and Game Pass wherever it could, it would exist like on PC still, and maybe it would come on the different platforms. People say like, oh, well, then Sony's not going to have any competitor and they'll do crazy stuff and really jack up prices, which is possible. But I feel like they would start to look at themselves as like, okay, now we're going to compete with PC and we're just going to be like the budget PC. Like, obviously, we're not going to be beating your NVIDIA 4090s and all these crazy specs and everything. But it's like, but not everybody can buy that. So let's just be the affordable PC, if you will, in terms of power levels and everything. So yes, I think things would get more expensive, but I still don't think they would be like charging $1,200 for a PS7. But I don't know. Maybe they would, but
I'll tell you what, the only reason I want Xbox to stay around is for the competitive thing. Because we know that Nintendo is going to be the last of the Mohicans. Yes. They're going to be the last ones, in my mind, to make hardware.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, I think the Switch is catching up with the PS2 right now. Like, the Switch might end up being the highest selling console ever of all time. Why would you not continue to do that?
Right.
Especially if all of a sudden you don't have any competition. And Nintendo's going to Nintendo anyway. So it's not like they do anything because Sony or Microsoft does anything.
They
but
only
my
do
thing
everything
is
cool like Mario.
exactly. Nice callback. But like for me, I'm like, dang it, like I just want something to keep Sony honest. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason I want Xbox to. And I mean,
but
I just think it's good. I just think it's good to have each other be pushed. Now, if because I don't like there not being other options besides just a PC. That's tough. And I love consoles because consoles, you know, minus the bugs and stuff like that, but it's plug and play. It's plug in the power, plug in HDMI, download your game and just play it. It is easy peasy.
Convenience.
Like, yeah, it's convenient. And so to have two consoles doing that and just pushing each other a little bit, I think it's good. That's the only reason why I want them to stay around.
Yeah,
but because it's not like I'm playing a bunch of Xbox games anyway.
The only flip side that I would say to that is you could make the argument that none of the time, other than you could say the 360 generation, Xbox hasn't been pushing PlayStation. Like PlayStation's been the lead dog the whole time. They've never and like they do. You could say that Game Pass led them to make the changes to PS Plus and by merging what was it, PlayStation Now and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like that it was already trending that way. They were going to do that anyways. I don't think that was a response to Game Pass. I think that was more because if it really were trying to compete, they would have probably done the whole we're putting our first party on their day and date too. I just don't know that it's actually doing anything.
I mean more from a power standpoint. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just want to make sure, how do you know that Sony stays wanting to be a powerful console? You know what I'm saying? Like,
you mean like,
because I don't want Sony.
What do you mean when you say powerful in like the actual hardware?
Yes, I would just think that somewhere in a boardroom, they're like, okay, what do we think Microsoft is going to do? Because we got to at least keep up with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I want that conversation to continue. I don't want them to be like, hey, Microsoft not even putting anything out anymore. We could probably do XYZ and be all right. Like, what pushes you? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't even know if that's pushing them because Microsoft is releasing two different versions. One of them's weaker, and all games have to have parity, and so they're almost holding themselves back. So even that's not good. Really.
That's kind of what I meant earlier when I said I think they would look to PC gaming as, okay, that's our competition now. That's what we're measured against. That was what we're competing with. And we know we're not going to beat them on the highest end because we're not going to charge $4,500 or, you know, whatever for this box.
Sure.
But if we can beat out all these entry-level Alienwares and, you know, whatnot, then okay. So that's what I'm saying. I think that let's say we're talking a future where there's a PS7. Now PS7, maybe PS7 is like $800, but if you're beating $1,200 or $1,500 PCs or staying lock and step with that, I think their gaze would just shift to that. Because I agree, there's been some things throughout the history of where they're doing the competition, especially in the 360 and PS3 days. And I do think they've pushed each other to some extent, but I just feel like that push has gotten less and less and less and less. And if trends continue, I'm not as afraid in that sense because I feel like Sony's so far ahead just in a competition standpoint that they're not looking back anymore. They're looking ahead, and whatever's in front of them now, they want to try to overtake or get lock and step with that. That would be my hope. Cause from a capitalist standpoint, if you will, I'm with you. I want something to compete them, to push them. And then when they're fighting, you know, for our attention, you know, we, the consumers, win. I agree. Yeah. I don't want it to, and it could go the negative route. I feel like that's not the way that it would go. I want to believe that. But I
want to believe that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also think that if it did go that route, it almost makes me wonder, like the peripheral market may explode even more for whatever the future PlayStations are. Because there's tons of people, because this is absolutely a thing. It's a thing for me, or at least it was until the Xbox Series generation. I don't like the Xbox controller. In fact, the 360 controller really bothered my hand. Like I couldn't play for more than an hour or so, and my thumbs would start cramping. And then they fixed, I don't know what they did, but something about the Series controllers and the Xbox One controller worked much better for me. But like there's people that just prefer their analog sticks offset or whatever. I bet you'd get even more options for if it were the only, you know, song in town. Maybe you'd start getting more things like that, and maybe more things would open up to official licensing so they could. And I don't know, maybe it would make it a bit, not the system modular, but maybe that area would explode, which would kind of give you that sense of making it your own in a way. I don't know. I'm just spitballing.
And we wouldn't have to worry about Sony doing the same thing, right? Like if Sony sees themselves as a console on its own, because they're not going to look at Nintendo as a competitor, there's not a chance that they want to do the same thing, right? Because that's what I really don't want. I don't want consoles. I don't want consoles to go away.
I mean, I could absolutely see a future where they both go away. But I think if that were to happen, it would happen from the standpoint of like PCs would get to the point where they get cheap enough to where a lot of people could just easily get one. That would be just focused on just gaming. Like for instance, when you get a like the Steam Deck, or what was that thing that they had before? Didn't they have like a little tester, or they had that no. I'm talking about for Steam. Yeah, the Steam machine, or like big picture mode where that PC, all it is, you just boot into that and it's just the game. It's just the game world. It's not, I gotta start my launcher and I gotta do this and I gotta run my, defrags and all this other stuff. Like it really just works more like a console. I think that would be figured out. I could see that happening, especially if Sony continues to put their games on PlayStation or on PC and they just go like sell gangbusters.
I just don't want there to be a world where it's only streaming and PCs.
I don't think it will.
Totally.
To be honest,
you're buying like a little Sony USB stick.
No,
that's got Wi-Fi 8E on it.
For me though, like PC scares me because there's so many factors to think about. You got to think about video cards.
Yeah,
like there's so much to it. The general population, the moms that are buying stuff for their 12, 13-year-old kids or whatever that are just starting out, they're not going to know any of that stuff. So consoles, I don't think are going anywhere because of convenience. You can spend this. But
you say it with a plural, like we're already talking about maybe one going away.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying like, and I don't know if this is like one more, like Xbox will do one more after this one and then go away. Like as Chris is kind of projecting out to PlayStation 7. It's just like we're already talking about one leaving. I don't want there to not be a PlayStation 8.
Oh
but
yeah.
To me, all this drama that happened over the weekend kind of just tells me that Microsoft doesn't have the market share that Sony has, and they have not put out the quality.
They did it one time, which is crazy.
That's the thing. They did it at one time, and then Sony came out like gangbusters. They had blockbuster games that can only be played on PlayStation, and Microsoft has not been able to get that formula back the way that they had it. The games have been subpar, and to me, this indicates that Starfield
really wasn't though.
Well, but Starfield was their.
It's subjective with numbers supporting it,
right? See, and numbers don't lie. Starfield to me is probably not a big hit, and they need that. They need that PlayStation market share to help boost their numbers, because I don't think that game was as successful as the money and marketing that they put in, because that game was supposed to be a monster for Xbox. And I don't think it was.
If you guys don't mind, I would also like to attack on
his glasses off for a second.
No, sorry.
Me too. I'm
just adjusting them. Sorry. I've got this. I got something on my glass and I keep trying to knock it off because it's bugging me. But part of all this yammering online this past weekend was also thought about like, okay, if things are afoot and huge changes are afoot, what could it be? And tons of things have been said out there. One thing that I said in our Discord, and there's some other people said this online too, but I was like, okay, well, to the people that are wigging out about this, what if the change is, hey, we're still going to make games. They're still going to be launched day one on Game Pass, but then 6 months to 12 months after, we're going to release those games to be available on PlayStation, whatever. It's like that wouldn't remove the need to have an Xbox or remove the need to have Game Pass. Because if you just like the subscription model, you still get it day one kind of thing.
Right.
And then I thought, okay, well, what if a change to Game Pass was, because something that's some of the rumors that have been floating around is that possibly day one will be going away from Game Pass. And it'll be more of a situation where kind of like PlayStation Plus right now, where day like God of War didn't come to Game Pass or didn't come to PlayStation Plus right away, but like 6 months down the road or whatever, then it launches into it. They're like, okay, what if it was something like that where it doesn't launch day one on Game Pass anymore? That way it gives Microsoft a window of time where you have to buy our next Halo or you have to buy our whatever if you want to be at the launch. If, like Gabe's always saying, I want to be a part of the thing when it happens. If you want to be that, you can buy it. but then 6 months down the road or a year, maybe we'll stick with 6 months to make it simple. Then it hits Game Pass and we start to sell it on PlayStation. So if you want to just stick with the Game Pass model, you don't get it the day it comes out, but when it hits, you're still going to get it just as part of your subscription. And if PlayStation, they may get it, but they got to pay $70 for it. They're not going to, it's not going to be on PlayStation Plus, or we don't have Game Pass on there. I mean, what do you guys think about any of those ideas? Like,
I want them to make their money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure.
To continue making great content.
Exactly.
And so if it's something like that, that's what I do now. You know, I buy, like, I'm going to buy Final Fantasy the day it comes out,
right.
you know, or, you know, I'm pay the $70. And so that's what I'm used to doing anyway. And so I haven't been totally indoctrinated by the day and date, you know, Game Pass, you know, stuff. And so for me, I'm like, make your money, but also make this thing easy. That's what I want. I want gaming to stay the behemoth it is. I want it to stay smashing everything else when it comes to numbers.
Yeah.
And that's what I care about.
I would. So for me and my kind, because I do favor my inline analog sticks and spend more of my time in the PlayStation world, I would absolutely be one of those people to be like, you know what? If if next week or soon we find out, yes, this is a strategy we got going moving forward, I'll get rid of my Series X. And because the games that I want, sure. Once my Game Pass subscription ends in April, I plan to let it lapse. I'm not renewing it. I'm just going to go back to I'm going to buy what I'm interested in as it comes along. And it's funny enough, when we had that story a couple weeks ago, I messaged Gabe on the side. I was like, man, if any of this stuff actually happens, I kind of want to wait until it hits PlayStation to buy Hellblade, but you know, just as a joke. And now I'm like, doggone it, next week we might be in a future where that could be an actual thing I could maybe do.
That is crazy.
Yeah, which, you know, I probably wouldn't, because I think it's going to launch when I'll probably be getting 2 more months of Game Pass because I have Microsoft points. It's like, I need to use these on something, and I think I can get 2 months so I think I can actually go to June now. But I don't, it's kind of crazy that it might be a thing. I don't know. It's so fascinating to see what's going to end up happening and how that's going to change the landscape. I don't think any of it's going to be quick. It's going to be a slow burn, but it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they say next week. And
I hope it's substantial. I hope they come out and he's like, I hope he comes out and is like, look, we don't have all the details yet, but yes, these 3 things are coming to PlayStation, and moving forward, we're still figuring it out, but we are going to put more games on competing platforms, and we'll see you in a couple months. Even if it's that, just if it's like, guys, the landscape's changing, and you know, we just want to be everywhere.
Innovation.
All right, and yes, gamers are gamers, and we're all just holding hands. All right, thank you for your time. If it's something like that where we don't really learn anything, I'm going to be so annoyed. Of course, so is the internet.
It's just Jeff Kaplan sitting in front of fire again.
Right. Yep. You know what I want just for the laughs is for them to come out and be like, yeah, we don't know where any of this came from. We're not doing any of this. It's just, we're just going on as usual.
Yeah.
Yeah.